Hmm. Well, here I am, about to read to you one of the finest pieces of literature in the English language. It is called The Zyborn Clock, The Golden Egg Chronicles. You can find a link to the work in the description below. We're going to start with chapter 1. It's one of my favorite parts of the whole novel. And so we shall begin. Chapter 1. Far off, away from the iron reach of capital, in the grand shadows of Craig's Peaks, lay the rural town of Palestar, nestled snugly in a small valley, carved out during the first terraforming of Racine. Palestar slept in the quiet oblivion of rural simplicity. The steam wagon's routes didn't pass near, the Zeppelin's fleets did not fly overhead. If it were not for the hum of the quotidon, one would not know that Palestar existed in the same time as the surrounding large cities, as if, perhaps, it existed along its own, slower-paced timeline, a relic of antiquarian culture, bereft of the trappings of the present. But that hum, that murmur, was ever present in the ears and hearts of the people of Palestar. They lived their simple ways, plowing the grasslands, raising the livestock, and forging and assembling much of the steam technology used throughout the continent. Indeed, the first thing an observant buyer might inspect before purchasing a steam device was the plaque of manufacture, lovingly crafted, polished, and riveted onto the steel body of the machination. Made in Palestar. The steamsmiths of Palestar took great pride in their work. It was craft handed down from father to son, grandfather to father, great-grandfather to grandfather, as far back as the mind could remember or the tongue could give speech. Each device was carefully conceived, produced and completed. Each gear turned slowly and smoothly. Each steam circuit glinted brightly. Each gasket held firm. Each piston pumped furiously. The work was external manifestation of the spirit of the people of Palestar, and also made useful gadgets used continent-wide. A blending of heart and science, the motto of the Palestrinian. It was late this night, and though the remnants of forge fires whisked up from the many of gear houses, there was one gear house whence the smoke rose furiously still. This was no steam release from a turbo stove, nor a jettison of vapor from a mech fiddle. No, in this gear house none of the typical revelry of Palestar was to be found. This was the smoke, dark and rich, from a brightly burning forge, alive with the potential of its creativity. Manning this forge, his blackened with soot, his white mustache and hair bespeckled and peppered, his round glasses glinting furiously back into the fire, as if symbolizing his contention with the flames, his thick arm pounding down rhythmically on the steel, shaping it to his will, was Angruff Camgroove. He spoke with a deep voice, matching his stocky body and hard gaze, which pointed directly into the fire. "You need to be flattening, boy. Like so." The hammer rang out, a kell. "'Tis not the strength here." He raised his huge muscular arm. but your will that bends the metal you're shaping." He dropped the hammer again, pounding roughly the malleable hot metal. Angruff turned around, his dark eyes glaring into the shadows. "Are ye listening to me, whelp? You'll not make a steamsmith if you sulk to the back like some kind of gangrommet." A soft but hard voice emanated directly from the shadows in the back of the shop, cold as steel, yet fiery as the forge. I'll sooner make myself a gangrommet than a steamsmith, sulking and all." Angruff lifted the great steam lamp and marched back to the corner, holding the light up to the pale face of the young man who stood in the back. "What say ye, boy? Talking like some kind of somebody?" Angruff spit on the floor. "You too good to wield a hammer, your majesty? Or are you planning on be a wee one your whole life, with nearly a coin nor a square yard to your name?" He thrust the huge mallet into the young man's hands. "Only with this will you make your way. That and this." He tapped the young man's forehead roughly. "Heart and science, lad. Heart and science. You haven't either, and you're nearly 20. "I remember all of this from when you told me last time, Angruff," the young man whispered, "and I don't know how to tell you any more plainly. I'm not interested. I don't want to be a steamsmith. I don't want to live in Palestar, and I don't want to hear any more lectures." The young man handed the hammer back to Angruff and began to walk out. The hammer clanged to the floor as Angruff grabbed the young man by the shoulders and spun him around. "You don't want any more lectures? Fine! Mark this the last, then. But I'll have my say. Steam is the lifeblood of society. It's more than just the perfect energy source. It's the staple of our town, the foundation of all those big cities you're dreaming about. It's a living force, Silas, a living force with a destiny and a voice. Steamsmiths, men of Palestar, have been bred to hear that voice in our dreams, in the clanging of our hammers, in our hearts. It's the gift of science, Silas, the gift of logic. And if you can't hear the voice or feel the life steam in your heart, then you're left with silence, with emptiness, and nowhere you run will keep you from that." "Steam has a destiny?" Silas questioned sharply in a rhetorical tone, not expecting an answer. "I'll tell you Steam's destiny. The same destiny as rock fume and beta steam. A forgotten antiquity, joked about, with a wistful tear of memory in the eye, over a round of ale in a common pub. I'll tell you of the destiny of steam. A man looking back over his shoulder while walking over a cliff. Don't you know what Capital and Malaprop are doing in their labs? The biotechnology, the nanotechnology, the experiments? Or do you only concern yourself with the hammer and the dinner plate?" Angruff was literally steaming with anger. "Curb your tongue, Silas. You may think you're king of the whole bloody world, but you're still my son, and under my roof you'll show me respect, or ye get a thrashing." Silas turned to Angruff, the moonlight reflecting coldly on his pale skin. "And you might consider yourself king of this hovel, but you aren't and never will be my father." Heavy stuff, guys. I'm going to have to take a break.